Welcome to another episode of the PopRewind Podcast. I'm Linz, and with me is Lee.
Hey there.
Hey.
So, Linz, there are probably 3 things I could talk about endlessly. Did you know that?
I thought there were more than 3, but please elaborate.
Well, I could talk endlessly about the Beatles.
True.
Amusement parks.
Very, very true.
And the topic of today's podcast.
Oh?
Yeah. Back to the Future. I know you're surprised.
I would never have guessed this.
I know you're surprised by that. Yeah, Back to the Future, it's my favorite film franchise of all time, and I'm very excited about this episode of the Pop Rewind Podcast. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, today we've got 2 very special guests. We have Rob Klein and Jennifer Smith, who have written a Back to the Future Almanac. Now, that's a Back to the Future memorabilia guide, so it covers all the Back to the Future merchandise from the films, the cartoon, the ride, and beyond.
So welcome to the show, Rob and Jennifer.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
So, guys, welcome to the podcast. Lee and I have both gone through the book, and we think it's fantastic. So we're just wondering, what prompted you guys to, compile everything and put out this book?
I love pop culture, and I kind of always have been fascinated by film history and television history. And I would always try and, if there was a book on the Twilight Zone or Star Trek, it was always something that I would, try to acquire and read. And being a big fan of the Back to the Future films, I kept waiting for a book like this to be published, and there was never one done. And, by the time we got close to the 30th anniversary and there still hadn't been a book made, I thought, well, I guess maybe I should take it on, and pitched it to Jenny, and she was, you were a fan of the films, right?
Indeed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then we thought, well, let's do this.
Excellent.
So, now, if I forget what I wrote, it would be like as if I didn't write it and I bought the book for the first time. Come full circle.
Now we can forget all about the book.
I can go back
read it all over again for the first time.
Yeah, I can go back to the past and give myself a copy of the book.
Yes.
And then I would have never written it, because then I would have had a copy. Oh, okay, never mind.
Wow.
We'll get into.
Yeah, that's a paradox right there.
The plot for Back to the Future 4 has just been revealed. Wait a minute.
Oh, you weren't supposed to mention that yet. Now we need to go back in the past to prevent you from saying that, so that...
Yes.
Such a conundrum.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a flowchart for this.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that nothing's been written really on the Back to the Future merch before, because it's been kind of scattered merch over the years. I've been collecting, at least since the second one came out, and you'll get kind of stuff in waves. Like, things will come out for a while, and then there's nothing for a few years. Then, Hot Wheels is making them now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is that kind of what you found in putting the book together? Is that you kind of found merch just come out in batches like that?
Well, certainly there's a huge plethora of stuff for part 2. And then, you saw nothing for the first movie.
Because it took everybody by surprise, and then they scrambled to get merchandise, but you didn't have a DeLorean toy for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a rumor that Steven Spielberg had said, "Oh, no DeLoreans," because of the controversy surrounding, John DeLorean and all that. And I had just thought, ever since, 85, that's the reason why Steven Spielberg said no DeLoreans. And then finally you start working on a book like this, and you're sitting down and you're like, did Steven Spielberg really say no to DeLoreans? And that was Bob Gill's like, no, that had nothing to do with Steven Spielberg. It was simply that nobody knew that the film was going to be so successful, and then nobody was prepared, prior to the movie, being released, how great of a film it was. So therefore nothing was really ready to go.
And then part 2, everybody over-prepared, and then there's an overabundance of part 2 material, and then back to part 3 where it kind of slows down to a trickle, and then you wait several years till after the trilogy items as well.
Right. Yeah, I remember part 2, had everything. There was like Pizza Hut had a tie-in for sunglasses that really had nothing to do with the movie. I remember getting trading cards at Christmas for Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah, I remember seeing those at Toys R Us carried the Back to the Future 2 cards. And I seem to remember it was like the first, gum cards in the wrapper that were like 50 cents a pack. And it was like, 50 cents a pack? Wow, 50
Serious.
How am I going to get the whole set at 50 cents a pack when you're, I think at the time I was in college, but still 50 cents a pack.
Our promotional trading cards actually pick up on the number where the trading card set left off. So you feel like you're adding to your old set.
Oh, nice.
Which is good, and they're formatted in the same way with the same coloration. And stuff,
yeah,
so
we thought we'd continue the Back to the Future 2 vibe. So
you have the same exact cardboard that they were cut on before.
Right.
Yeah, we sourced the cardboard. We found the guy who wrote the strange, random titles like Marty's surprised, and then there's Marty running, and you're like, what's happening?
I don't know if I ever told you that, Jenny, but the guy who actually wrote those cards was Michael Klastorian, who was the publicist for Back to the Future 2 and 3. And we actually found when we were researching the book, there was a very limited lenticular card set made for the 25th anniversary, and Michael Klastorian again wrote the captions for that card set.
Really?
So, yeah, it's that's the kind of detail that we went into with each and everything we put in the book. Another thing is, as I mentioned, being a fan of all this stuff and loving to read collectible books and making of books for all my favorite movies. I wanted to not only put, to document what the item was, but I wanted to try to put as many kind of background stories about the items, like a funny anecdote about the item being made or like something that you might not have known about. And I haven't really seen a lot of collectible books do that before. So when we were making this book, even with the way we laid it out, we'd lay it out and you'd get together with people and they go, well, that's not actually really how books are laid out. And I would be like, well, okay, but why can't we do it this way? And they'd be like, well, I guess you can. So we weren't really going off of any sort of like prior formula or prior template to do this book. We just kind of thought, let's just try to make a fun book that everybody would find new and refreshing. And I think that's the fun of Back to the Future is all the detail that goes into everything, And
it's definitely not a price guide. It's more of a, as he said, what's happening in the culture. Like there was a big rumor going around since we live so close to Universal Studios Hollywood that we should be very, very careful. Moms wouldn't let their kids ride the ride because they worried that if there was an earthquake at the same time that the ride was going on, the ride would slide down the mountain and kill everyone. And everybody, all my school friends knew that. Oh, man, if you're riding Back to the Future and the big one happens, we're all going to die. And I thought, what are the odds? Even back then, like however old I was, 8 years old, I was like, that sounds implausible, but it was a big legend.
What would happen if you were on the earthquake attraction at Universal Hollywood and then the big one happened while you were on the earthquake?
Outrageous.
It would be like a double e-ticket attraction at that point.
Yeah.
You have real earthquake and then the phony earthquake.
It's like, when did they revamp this ride? I don't remember 2 subway cars crashing through the building.
Damned exciting.
I should tell you, before we started, I told you there was a little anecdote about Bob Gale and Universal Hollywood. I actually worked on the Time Machine restoration project, which was really fun. That was, if you don't know, or for those of you who don't know out there were 3 cars made for Back to the Future, and they all called them the A, the B, and the C car. And the A car was the hero car that got most of the photography for the film, but it was in really bad shape. So Universal did a great job and restored the car, and they put together a team of people that were able to bring the car to look exactly how it did when it was ready. And I was lucky enough to be one of those people.
Time Machine Restoration led by Joe Walzer.
Joe Walzer and a few other people, and so Bob Gale was very involved with that. And so we went to look at the car when Universal had placed it on display. And we all rode with Bob Gale on the Simpsons ride, and I, of course, had said, to Bob, I said,
Whoa.
I bet you don't like this ride, because I had actually never been on it before today, so
Why would he?
rode with Bob Gale on the probably the first and last time he rode on the Simpsons ride, and then it was funny because the Doc Brown's chicken was still there.
Oh my gosh!
And I said, Bob, go stand in front of the chicken restaurant and let me give you get a picture in front of Doc.
Is there a photo?
Yeah, so I took a photo with him in front of Doc Brown's chicken, and then right after that, the building actually got raised because they're building the Harry Potter ride there. So I thought that was kind of neat to see Bob Gale in front of
Doc Brown. Where's that photo, man?
I'll have to find that photo.
Oh my gosh!
Now that we all have digital photos, nobody keeps track of this stuff.
Right. It got lost in a Dropbox file somewhere.
Right.
Wow. So what was his take, I'm curious, on the Simpsons ride, and particularly if you were in line long enough to see that nod to the Back to the Future ride in there?
He didn't make any comment on it. I think he completely was either asleep when the ride or just refused to give us any comments afterwards. He was very disappointed that the Back to the Future ride went away.
Right.
As we all were, because it was a great ride.
It worked.
It was a great ride.
I'm gonna miss Biff. I mean, you don't get to see a lot of, post Back to the Future Biff, and it's just, we actually included some of his quotes from the ride in the book because the quotes are so funny. Just if you listen to the audio from the kind of the ride spiel,
right.
It's that he taunts them in that famously stupid way, and it's glorious, and I miss it.
Yeah.
You're a Biff.
I'm a Biff fan.
Bob Gale had actually told me that he did not write the dialogue for the ride because, they were still in post-production, and certainly for Back to the Future 2, and then they were still shooting, I think, 3 when the ride was in development. So he didn't do any of the dialogue, and I have to apologize to the gentleman who did write the dialogue. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but when he finished the script for the ride, he showed it to Bob Gale, and he said, "Did I get Doc Brown right?" And Bob thought that he did, and said, "Yes, you did a good job."
Oh, wow!
Yeah.
So that was not the writing of Zemeckis or Bob Gale, but it had their blessing, and they thought that the writer for the ride did a great job.
Yeah, that ride's interesting because it kind of takes everything to Doc's life after the movies. So Doc has opened up this time travel institute. And he's to the point where he can just take random volunteers off the street.
Yes.
Time Travel Institute and fried chicken.
That's right. He's a very industrious. He's an inventor.
He's very busy in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got kids. He's got kids to feed.
Well, maybe the kids are making the chicken.
Oh.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jules and Vern. The later adventures that Bob Gale did have a hand in writing are the comic book. The Harvey Comics comic book.
Oh, I didn't know he was involved with that. Yeah.
And he was involved in the video game that came out most recently. And then very famously disappointed in the earlier video games, which I think we have a quote from him where he says, "Total crap."
Yeah. If you ever want to experience what it's like to be in the cafe and have 50 Biffs approach you while you throw root beer at them, that's your game.
Wow.
That's the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That makes me want to play it, actually.
You're a Biff fan. Jen,
yes.
So that might actually be what the one you should check out.
Yeah, that was kind of magical what you just said. So yeah, I mean, I didn't think I had any interest before like a minute ago, and now that's all I want to do.
You're in.
Yeah, you're in.
You changed. You flipped quick. You went from I don't want to play the video
never,
games. I want to
and
play
then that's it. That's
all it took was 50 Biffs.
Well,
that's our intro now from all the Back to the Future fans in this podcast is 50 Biffs, and then everybody know what we're talking
magic.
about.
So one thing with the book, I mean, there's so much in there, and you're talking about a movie franchise that's been around for 30 years. Did you have to pick and choose which stuff made it in the book, or anything you could find ended up in there?
No, we try to put everything in there. I've made a lot of really great connections with Back to the Future fans, for the last 30 years. And when I tell people, I said, "What are you working on now?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm working on a Back to the Future book." And they'd be, "Oh, what about?" And I said, "Oh, probably, the history of the memorabilia and the promotional materials and all that stuff." And I would get comments well, you're never going to find this. And I'd be like, actually, I have one of those. And they'd be, what? Wow, I can't wait to buy the book now. So we tried to put everything in there.
With two exceptions. We were talking to Bob Gale, and he was saying, well, I have Back to the Future on DVD in Japanese. I have it in this. And it was the same cover, but just different languages and the titles shown over and over. And I said, this is, my girl opinion. I want to see like maybe 3 or 4, and then my eyes are going to get exhausted. And then this year, there seems to be this explosion, obviously in anticipation for 2015 of product. And since this book came out in 2014, in anticipation of 2015, it was hard to keep up with this last couple of months of 2014.
Yeah, so if we're not complete, it's definitely going to be the stuff that's still in development or still coming out in 2015. And of course, there's always going to be somebody that's going to approach us and it's going to say, oh, you know what, you didn't get this or you didn't find one of these. And which is actually exciting to me because I want to see what we didn't know about or we didn't find about. Matter of fact, Zemeckis gave us a quote, and he said, this is an essential book for all true BTTF fans. There are things in here that I didn't even know existed. So the fact that we, found stuff that the director and one of the creators didn't know about, I think that was kind of we knew that we had succeeded on some level. But some of the things that we don't have photographed in the book, we try to at least mention, like those that remember buying CDs in the original days of CDs when they were first being sold. They used to sell them in what was called a long box. Remember those?
Right, yeah.
And Back to the Future, all 3 soundtracks actually eventually got released in long boxes, and we showed the Part 3 long box and then mentioned, of course, that there were ones made for the other ones.
Yeah.
And one other thing, when we were first starting this project, a lot of people would say, well, everything's just that Drew Struzan poster. Everything's just the poster. And I was like, yes, that's what you think. But if you really start getting into the minutia of it, you find there are a lot of things from the first film
images.
that actually did have unique covers and different art. And
absolutely.
That's what's kind of fun about it. And that's another great example of why we should have made the book, because people's perception of like what they think things were and the reality are 2 different things. And that's why it's great to have a book like this to kind of set the record straight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you did a good job with the items you put on the cover of the book to kind of differentiate, hey, it's not just the poster. Like, it's there, but, it's got some of the toys, some of the merch, some of the spin-off items. Now, you had mentioned that you expect that people are going to come to you and say, hey, you didn't have this in the book or that. Have you already gotten some of that?
Not yet. But I'm waiting any moment now. Maybe you should just be that person and tell me what I missed.
You can be the first.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Well, since you said any moment, well, it's funny. One thing I enjoyed about the book is kind of reliving my collection over the years, where I've just gotten bits and pieces as birthday gifts or whatever. And so I kind of had a list in my head, like when I first opened the book. I'm like, all right, let's just see. Is this in there? Hoverboard pins. Wow, I thought those were bootleg. Those are in there. The Back to the Future Power Wheel that they only seem to sell at the Ride gift shop. Okay, it's there. The one I was looking for was the Back to the Future Part 2 backpack.
Wow, that is not in there, is it?
I've never heard of that. Oh my gosh, we should start a section in the on the website of like stuff we missed, and like that is excellent. Is it a DeLorean, or does it just say Back to the Future 2 on the back? Now,
keep in mind, I haven't used this backpack since 4th grade, so I'm trying to remember. There's a black backpack with that neon yellow on the pouch, kind of like those Pizza Hut sunglasses, and then the Back to the Future Part 2 DeLorean coming out of the clock logo on the back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great. I mean, I could tell you what a few of the things that aren't in the book that I knew, and I think that you'd have to say that some of the things that aren't in the book would have to be some of the more elusive or rare pieces. Now that's not to say that they are the rarest pieces, but they certainly would be that way. I mean, I know for a fact that there's a Hill Valley class ring that I was well aware of that was sold at the Back to the Future, the ride.
Oh,
wow. I knew it existed. I couldn't get my hands on one. Bob Gale didn't have one, so I would definitely say that that's an obscure item. There's also, I think there was a Hill Valley, like a Letterman's jacket sold as well.
We make a note that apparel and things that are worn, or there's a matches set from Universal Studios. Apparel is usually worn out and kind of tossed or thrown away, and so that's one of the harder things to actually get your hands on. And then the match set, because I guess in a smoking culture in the 80s, you would have just used it and moved on.
Yeah, you can't sell matches to kids anymore.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and being that the fact that they're matches anyway, I just. There can't be too many sets of the Back to the Future matches.
Right.
It was like, what was it? Cafe 80s was on one, Biff's Casino was on the other, then the logo, and they were sold in like a 3-pack of Actually, there were 6 matches. There were 2 of each of the 3 matches, but yeah, I would assume that there can't be too many of those still around.
The ride had its own gift shop. So I just imagine there's endless amounts of merch they just burn through every 6 months. Oh, we got, new T-shirts, new buttons. It seems like every time I went to Universal Studios, I'd walk out of that store $50 less. Are you getting that kind of feedback? People are looking through this kind of like I am and saying, wow, I'm seeing my collection over the years and how it grew. Because it's basically in chronological order. So it is like almost time traveling with Back to the Future memorabilia, essentially.
Thank you. You totally got it. You're the first person that actually mentioned to me that's it. That's exactly what it was, because we wanted to make the whole book like you were time traveling. Matter of fact, we even tried to make some of the chapter titles look the way that the movie does. So we wanted to kind of make you feel like that you were watching, Back to the Future, where we started out with the black with just the type at the lower third of the page, so hopefully people even remember that, and reminds them of watching the Back to the Future
But the
films.
titles are the release dates of the films, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So people are saying that I recognize this or I recognize that, but so far not any. You've missed any really seriously glaring, items.
Right.
They made theatrical standees for all the actually not the first film because it was too rushed, but for parts 2 and parts 3, they made these huge cardboard displays that they would put in the theater lobbies, and we actually had access to a part 2 and a part 3, and we got to the point where we didn't even think it was necessary to put that in there because they were just the Drew Struzan posters recreated, but
right.
It's another example of it. We just got to the point where it was like,
you don't want to get into the point of redundancy. You mention it, but if you're a Back to the Future fan, you know exactly what it looks like, so it's kind of I don't even remember if we put in the photo of the cardboard box that has the standee in it.
I know there's going to be some people that are going to be upset because we don't have the part 2 long CD long box.
Right.
So I guess if enough people are bummed about that, then maybe we could
do an amended version.
Yeah, it addendum to that down the road or something. So.
But I don't know. I mean, I feel like going through it, I got that sense like, okay, I don't need to see every variation of the poster. Obviously, it's in every language there could be, and so I think it's just, a great book that fans will enjoy, and, they can pick up, check out a few pages here and there. It's, I gotta say, I ended up reading the whole thing in one sitting, but my original intent was to just, kind of go through and relive the memories of my McDonald's toys.
Oh yeah. That's great. That's great.
We had Jenny had a neat suggestion, where we had a whole page that was just a close-up of the Marty on the hoverboard McDonald's Happy Meal Premium.
Like a glamour photo, but of a very kind of low-quality toy. But it would be so funny if it was up close and he's kind of looking back at you.
So in the earlier versions of the book, we had a
saucily.
whole page just of the close-up of the Marty character's face. You could see the little pin from the toy. And Bob Gale's like looking at this page for a long time. He goes, "Does this have to be so big?" And we were kind of like, I guess Bob doesn't like the Happy Meal toys too much, So
Hilarious.
I think he didn't want to. They're pretty low tech, but isn't that the charm of them?
Yeah, but at least we got Doc and his sparking DeLorean, but from the rear. So he's looking. So there's a little bit of sassiness to these toys that we wanted to capture.
We wanted to show all the DeLorean enthusiasts that Doc's Happy Meal toy had a crystally clear rear deck on the DeLorean. That's important for people, right?
I was always surprised that toy was marketed to children because it sparked.
Yeah, I mean, how fun was it to be a kid in the 80s? You had matches, you had sparking DeLorean. I mean, what else? Yeah. I mean, we could probably find all sorts of other things, But that's what's great about having this book is like it's history now, so people can't go, why did we make Back to the Future matches? It's like, doesn't matter, you made them.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. Oh, they're out there.
It's fantastic to see it all in one place. Like you said, nobody had done it. You would think with every website having a fan wiki at this point, there would be something that had every piece of merch in there, but not to this extent, definitely. You were saying earlier about how impossible it was to find DeLorean toys, like way back when, and now there's an abundance. I honestly stopped collecting them because there's so many. But back in the day, I was like painting other toys silver and pretending they were DeLoreans. That's
I totally understand that. Yeah. There was one DeLorean die-cast toy, had nothing to do with Back to the Future, that was made around the time the DeLorean came out. It was made by Tomy. People, a lot of people out there collect Hot Wheel cars and Matchbox cars, so I'm sure that those guys are aware of the first ever DeLorean. But, we needed a DeLorean, in the Back to the Future packaging made for, the first film in 1985. We never saw that. We didn't see anything from DeLorean until Back to the Future 2. And I think, what did we have? We had pencils and pens, and then we had the remote control DeLorean, and then there was a really weird one like made by LJN, was called like a high speed racer, and it had like big fat tires on it. It was like. At the time we were like, fine, I'll take it. It's a DeLorean. It's a time machine. And nowadays, it's almost, I think I know what you're saying, it's almost like, I don't want to say too much, but it's almost like it's too much to collect every one, right?
Right.
It's just too many.
You almost have to focus on a single film. Like, I only collect the hovering DeLorean. That's the only one I collect on.
Exactly.
Like the part version, yeah.
And then you buy it in every different scale you possibly could.
Right.
Yes.
Like, that's what it'll be. It's a new one's out. Oh, it's in a different scale. Well, I don't have that one yet.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One is aluminum, one is chromium. Which do I choose?
Yeah. Well, speaking of weird DeLoreans, they even made one that was, I think, for the Mini-Mates line, they made one that came with the Jennifer Mini-Mate, and it's clear. I don't ever remember DeLorean turning clear in the movies, but there's I guess it's supposed to be like going in and out of time or something, but...
Oh, okay. I'll grab onto that and go with it.
Yeah.
Or they forgot to paint it.
Yeah. Just time has no
It was made by the same people that made the matchbooks, actually. They were like, just put out matchbooks. Somebody was like, just make a clear DeLorean.
Make
well, that's
clear.
not that good. Just make it.
Yeah.
Somebody bought it.
make it.
And then they realized, we don't have the ride gift shop anymore. We gotta cut back a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, we got it. We need more nonsense in the Back to the Future world.
That's so funny. If anybody wants to understand that that Back to the Future memorabilia isn't all seriousness, just you turn to page 191 and you get to see the off-roader Back to the Future Part 3
Monster truck
DeLorean with a sheriff star on the gull-wing door.
Yeah, that seems legit.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody it's like people, Back to the Future is totally serious. It's like, well, not according to page 191 Back to the Future Almanac, because, did you have that toy?
No, and I laughed pretty.
Will you be getting this toy in your future?
Oh.
I think I'm going to get it in the past.
Yeah.
Is that licensed?
This is licensed. Actually, that's a good thing to ask. We actually try to avoid any bootlegged Back to the Future stuff, only because since this is an official Back to the Future sanctioned item by Universal Studios. We just thought we were going to only support the officially licensed stuff. Coincidentally, though, there's not that much unauthorized Back to the Future stuff that I've come across, and I always would love to hear what was made, but I think other franchises might have a lot more bootleg or counterfeit material made for their
Star
franchise.
Trek.
Star Trek, a lot of that,
Excuse me.
Yeah. I remember always questioning if that hoverboard pin was licensed, but when I saw it in the book, that kind of refreshed me. Okay, well, there's at least a display the pins were in. Maybe it was legit.
Right.
Well, that's interesting about Back to the Future because I remember if you were lucky enough to come into a store and see something, with the exception of Toys R Us because they would get their stock replenished, but like all those pins were made by Applause, and I remember seeing them at one store on Melrose Avenue or Boulevard or whatever it is. What is it, Melrose? Anyway, whatever. And saw the pins and all that. I'm like, oh, those are very cool. And then a week later, gone.
Yeah.
Right.
And you never see them again until you see a friend that has them, and you're like, I never got those. And
people take Back to the Future collecting completely for granted. It's a post-eBay world.
Yeah.
And also now that there's licensed things and the public consciousness about Back to the Future is so much higher. But I mean, it was like the Wild West, no pun intended. I mean, you really had to grab and go, and you would hear legend of something that had come out and that you had somehow missed, and you'd be like, no, because you'd never see it again.
The merchandise that is in the book is, for the most part, is that from your personal collections?
I had a lot of it, which I'm very proud to say, and it's like if I had to start collecting when we went into production on this book, there would have been no way to compile that material. I mean,
so it had to be a collection of a lifetime.
Yeah, forget about the financial thing. It's just we couldn't do it. I mean, there were too many things that I have just never seen since. And then the great thing about it was when we first met with Bob Gale and showed him what we wanted to do, and we're seeing what he thought. His answer was like, "Come on over to my house and see what I have."
And then he showed us boxes.
And he had
boxes.
He had stuff.
Oh my God.
It was a real honor because we'd be going through stuff and he'd say, now there's a memo from Steven Spielberg that I'm looking for. Oh, yeah, we just came across it. It's in that box there. And then he'd go, great. I got to show that to Robert Zemeckis. He's going to really laugh.
It was very surreal.
It was really, a real unique experience there.
It was amazing. And you'd see photographs that nobody's ever seen. I mean,
probably will never be able to see.
Incredible. I mean, it was just, and he was so kind to us and had just this open door policy. It was very just here you go, and have a good time. And we were out there with the scanner and a photographer, and we went nuts.
Well, we never took it for granted because Bob Gale, is somebody that of anybody with his success, he does not suffer fools. Mm-hmm. So we made sure we were always.
I tried not to act like a fool.
Yeah, we didn't want to be a fool. We always run our best behavior and stuff, and I think he was appreciative because we ended up archiving his entire collection. So
Rob is an archivist as well, and he took the paper and he put it on acid-free mat boards and plastic, and he took these things that were in boxes and he kind of just arranged them better so that they can, in another 20 years when volume 2 comes out,
when we were going through the Back to the Future stuff, we'd come across his films like Used Cars and if you remember that movie, and 1941, and
he had boxes for those too.
And I would be like,
boy,
go ahead and photograph and scan and archive all this. It goes great. And then the neat thing was there was a release of Used Cars shortly after, and he would be like, Rob, send me all the Used Cars images, and those ended up on a Blu-ray. So it was great. There was this Back to the Future book actually ended up providing a lot of other material for other projects that would have never have seen the light of day.
His archive alone could be its own display.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
It's pretty good.
So how long did it take you to put the book together? I mean, it sounds like this took 10 years, honestly.
Well, I mean, it's a lifetime of archiving the materials and just listening to people tell their little stories about Back to the Future. For example, there's a very, very talented artist named Tony Baxter who works, or he's retired now, but he worked for Walt Disney Imagineering his entire career, and I used to work for Disney for quite a while, and just one day we were talking about Back to the Future, and he told me a story that actually the story is actually in the book. So it was just, being someone that always loves to talk about Back to the Future, and then when we started writing this book, I recounted back to this story that Tony Baxter had shared with me, and then of course that's in the book. So I would say it's certainly a lifetime since Back to the Future came out of compiling the information in my head, and then the actual physical production of the book took 3 years.
And it was like, I used to describe the book as an onion. People would say, well, it's just photographs and captions. And I'd say, no, every time you get to a different layer of Back to the Future, then a new layer reveals itself, and then you're like, well, what's this? And where did this come from? And what's the story with this? And it went on and on. We thought we were going to, 3 months. We're going to be done. It's going to be great. And years went by.
Yeah.
So this is labor of love.
And you wanted to get it right, so you didn't want to put something in there that was just like a half-truth or a half-baked situation. So we're very proud to say that, for the most part, that this is a historically accurate telling of what happened and what these items, the history is. So
we talked about your collections. I'm wondering, what's your most prized piece in your collections?
Well, I really love the... I should probably set this up with the backstory. So California Raisins were going to be a product placement in Back to the Future, like kind of how Reese's Pieces were. Okay. Well, actually, that ties in this. We tell the story in the book, but I'll share it here with all the Back to the Future podcast listeners. California Raisins wanted raisins in Back to the Future as product placement, and everybody kind of on the team, Back to the Future production team, was saying like, well, how do you have raisins in Back to the Future? And somebody said, well, have a bowl of raisins at the Enchantment of the Sea dance. And Bob Gale says, well, if you put a bowl of raisins at the dance, it's going to look like a big bowl of dirt. So I don't know if people are going to really understand that they're raisins as snacks. So they ended up having to give back California Raisins their product placement money. But in the end of the movie, they do have a presence in the film. They're on the bus bench when Marty comes back from 1955 to 85, and the transient hobo is sleeping on the bench, and he gets up and he says something. Yeah, he's like, rad, or whatever he says. Well, if you look closely, it'll say California Raisins, blah, blah, blah.
You go.
So California Raisins Board got a bus stop placement in the film, but what they did get was they got the honor of having a sweepstakes tie-in, which is if you bought California Raisins, you could send in a little flyer, and what you would get in the mail was the Back to the Future Toyota Dream Truck, which was just a product called Stomper 4x4, which was a popular toy that you put like a AA battery in, and it would go over your shoes and rocks and stuff. So it was the same Stomper 4x4 toy in a black truck with Back to the Future silk screen on the hood. And I think that is technically the very first Back to the Future toy or dimensional toy. Mm-hmm. And I think I actually have the shelf counter display showing Marty's truck. And
with the sweepstakes little tags
that you tear off. And then I was able, from my friend at backtothefuture.com, Stephen Clark, he actually found me one of the Back to the Future trucks. And I just think it's so funny because, you go and you see this movie Back to the Future, and the DeLorean, what a great movie vehicle. And then you're in the store, if you're lucky enough to see the advertisement, and they're advertising a Toyota truck.
A little black.
And you
would say it's Marty's dream truck, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's just very random.
It's just not it's once again, it's just not what you think that you would be seeing for Back to the Future. So I think that's my favorite little ensemble is all the things that surround the Back to the Future sweepstakes winning Marty's dream truck. I think that's my favorite.
And my favorite would have to be the little McDonald's sparking DeLorean Doc giveaway, simply because my little son thinks it's the funniest, coolest thing that ever was, and I think it's so amusing to watch him think that it's great. I think it's great just in its simplicity and its kind of its clumsiness of replicating Doc is so charming, because there's very little charm. Things are so real and so well done now, and I enjoy when things are very primitive looking and kind of goofy. And so that's so charmingly goofy. I could set it on a pedestal and light it very specially, and it's art.
Well, that is only my favorite toy, second to the Back to the Future matches. So, yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Well, it's nice you can share that with your kid too.
And it's not so precious that you have to, every time he reaches for something, like that thing is indestructible. It's been in water. It's been thrown half a dozen times. It's fine.
Well, that's the magic of McDonald's toys, is they...
Yeah, indestructible.
The cockroach and McDonald's Happy Meals toys will be here if there's ever a Holocaust tragedy.
Good.
Well, okay, so kind of moving on from the book a bit, since you guys are such fans. Obviously, 2015 is a big year for Back to the Future fandom. 30th anniversary of the first film. It is the 25th of the third film, and then it's the year they time travel to in the second film. So it's like a catch-all anniversary, and then I don't know if there's going to be another big one after that. This is like the one. Are you anticipating it as fans of the films?
This is the perfect storm of Back to the Future fandom. You don't want to miss this and be, hearkening back to this 20 years from now. Now is a good time to be a fan, and I believe this enthusiasm and this kind of public awareness of Back to the Future will have trails that will kind of go from past 2015 maybe to 2018, where there'll be this resurgence of product, and then maybe it'll calm a little bit. This is a good time. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of events that are planned and a lot of fun stuff. I hope that it's not going to be like the big year for Back to the Future and then just nothing. I think people get excited around anniversaries, and I think all of us as fans know that you don't need an anniversary to celebrate Back to the Future. But the upside to that is maybe the people that are on the fence that don't really know the franchise so well, or promoters, will be more inclined to do something as, it's the anniversary, then hey, I'll throw caution to the wind and we'll do something. So I think from that aspect alone, we see a lot of stuff being made. But I think that anytime there's a big anniversary and a big event around a tentpole film, I think it only helps to perpetuate the film's presence and the fan base for just a lot longer. So I just think, just keep watching the internet, because I think there's going to be a lot of really great, unique Back to the Future get-togethers going on this year.
Right. And, we're all fingers crossed. The ride's, it's got to come back, right? This is the year?
Man, we'd have to have a talk with Krusty the Clown and see if he'll get back
he's notoriously difficult. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a Back to the Future fan, Krusty.
No,
so,
I don't think he cares.
Yeah.
There's obviously going to be more Back to the Future stuff as time goes on. Are you going to do are there plans for an updated version of the book already, or are you kind of going to play it by ear?
That'll be in 30 years.
I think so. Bob Gale has actually sent me stuff where he has said, for further future editions of the book. But we don't want to make it seem like people should wait for the future editions, because it'll be something that, with the rate Back to the Future memorabilia is being produced right now, we would have to be updating on every 6 months. I think if there is an updated edition, it would be way actually into the future at this point. But certainly... if we go into a repressing of the book in several years, it would only make sense to maybe add an addendum or something like that to it. But I mean, the point is, though, is pretty much this is it up until 2015. And the great thing, though, is if you buy the Back to the Future book, Back to the Future Almanac now, you don't really have to worry about the current stuff, because hopefully you could get tuned in and buy the current stuff and add your own stuff. The very last line of the book says, your collection is whatever you make it, so make it a good one. And it says to be continued. So it's definitely, hopefully it will inspire people to keep building their collections and enjoying their collections and just having a great time.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I think it was smart, too, to have a cutoff year on the book to 2015 because, like you said, it's all starting to flood now, and so that gives you a starting point for the sequel.
Yes.
So then there'll be 3 books at some point, and then an animated book. Now.
That's right. One only about chicken recipes, too. Yeah.
And
that's so funny because the thing is that we don't know what the future is going to hold for us. So
no one knows, really.
I think chicken may be in it, though. Somewhere.
I think that's for certain.
Definitely. So speaking of the future, is there any other project that you two are working on that's coming up that you want to kind of give a taste of here, or for people to keep an eye out on?
We shouldn't say too much, and I never understood it when you hear people like, well, I shouldn't say too much, and then I always used to think like, well, that probably means they don't know what they're doing. We actually do know what we're doing. At least I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm working on.
I get it.
But we probably shouldn't say. But it's another project that's affiliated with Universal Studios. And I have to say, if anybody's listening from Universal with this, and wanted to thank them for being so supportive. And, when you go into these things, you really never know who's going to be your friends or who's going to work against you, or, you never know. And I couldn't, Bob Gale and all of his people and Universal have just
been kinder to
just
us.
Absolutely supportive and excited. And, it's really neat to hear, because we were told several times that Back to the Future is Universal's #1 license.
If you go on their licensing page, you can see the 3 top franchises, and there's a little flame next to Back to the Future. I guess it's so hot, there's a little icon of a flame, and I was so intimidated, like, oh no, what does this mean? Like, this means, licensing prices have tripled or something. It was incredible.
The flame means the chicken is cooking. That is actually a huge honor for Back to the Future, because when you think of Universal has, the monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, just icons of
huge franchises
of Earth culture, and then you have
Mars culture,
not Mars culture, Earth culture, because they were made on Earth, at least as far as we know, and then E.T. and the fact that Back to the Future is right there. I mean, it just goes to show that that Back to the Future is not going anywhere, which is great, because I think we say in the book, it said, the future is going to be great as long as we have Back to the Future in it, because it makes me happy. So I don't know.
So how does it feel now that you have a book out to be part of that universe and know that you've now contributed significantly to the Back to the Future fandom and everything overall with the films?
I've started to wear a beret and a monocle, so that and I sign autographs with my non-dominant hand to make it super messy, like I'm very so that's what I've been doing. I raise my pinky now when I drink. I never did that before. So it's added a lot of class to my daily routine. No, I feel honored. I mean, the fact that Bob Gale took the time to even deal with us, and then was so kind to us. Just still, when I think about it, it just gives you hope that something that you love so much, you fear approaching your heroes because you think they're going to turn around and go, get away from me, something awful.
Right.
And when they're lovely to you, and then you're able to actually create something that adds to the scholarship of something that you love so much, and that is culturally worthy, is such an honor. And I know that Rob is the collector of most of these things, and he's spent his life since the movie came out kind of picking and choosing these things, and he has such excellent attention to detail, and he remembers these little stories, and he's the one who has this vast depth of knowledge. It's amazing, and so to be able to exploit Rob's base of knowledge about this subject matter, plus the collection, plus the assistance of Gale, it's a tempest in a teapot. It's very exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you for those kind words, Jenny. I will give you your $20 after the podcast. I just hope that I just hope that the Back to the Future community thinks that it was a worthwhile endeavor, and I'm very, very proud to have been involved in another Back to the Future project, and certainly the first book for Back to the Future that I've been affiliated with. So I just hope that it just, if anything, just turns more people on to Back to the Future, or at least reminds people of why they love these movies. And life is short, but if we could spend more time, enjoying, the truly great things that we have here on Earth, I think that, films are truly one of the things that we're lucky enough to enjoy. And certainly I think that, as Back to the Future, it's certainly the first film. I mean, it doesn't really get any more perfect than that. I mean, that's a conversation that a lot of film people and I talk about is like, what are truly perfect movies, like literally to where you can't make them any better. You can't fix this or that. And I think that movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and certainly Back to the Future and Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, certainly in recent history, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, I'm a big fan of, just perfect films. Mm-hmm. And I just think that it's exciting to remind people that this isn't just a fluke. This is a masterpiece of 20th century American cinema.
You got any way to plug the book, or people keep updated with you?
We do. It's on www.bttfalmanac.com, and you can buy the book on that site, and you can also email us and contact us also on the site.
Yeah, I should probably also say to everybody out there, this is the first printings, hardcover, 250 pages. There's over 600 full-color original photographs of the memorabilia. It's not stuff that was like, screen captured off of eBay or the internet. I mean, these are things that we actually paid a photographer to take. And there has been some talks about some future second pressings and stuff, and there's kind of been one talk about doing a soft cover version. I'm always pro to being hardcover, so I'm just saying to the hardcore fans, it's like, if you want the first edition, this one's in hardcover. And I can tell you that it was a very expensive book to publish, so it's a labor of love, and I think that so come get the first edition while it's still here, because if it does go to a second pressing, it may not be hardcover. So just something to kind of say out there. That's not like a gimmick or a sales ploy. I mean, I always appreciate it when you hear that from publishers or people for projects that I want to buy something from. Is a lot of times I'll wait, and then you're like, the hardcover's gone. And, well, there's a Stanley Kubrick book that came out 2001: A Space Odyssey. Hardcovers are sold out, and it's already selling for double of what the book was, and it's just like, I shouldn't have waited, Mm-hmm. So, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. It's like, if you want to wait for a soft cover, it will probably want to be in the future. But if you're a collector of hardcover books, the only one I know for sure that will be hardcover is the first edition out now. So
okay, excellent.
And it looks great. Like, we've both gone over it, and it's a really good read. And I mean, obviously, I'm not as a fanatic of Back to the Future as Lee is, and even I still enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
That is huge for me, because that we tried to write with I a lot of times when I write, I think about, like, will my dad understand this? My mom understand what I'm saying, because then you can try to explain it. Like, I think we're being very silly and during this podcast, but I'm assuming that most people probably understand the references we're making, so we didn't have to be very straight down the middle. I mean, maybe we took the chicken or the 50 bits a little too far, but I mean yeah. So I really, that's neat that you said that, because I kept thinking, like, I have to explain this for the person that doesn't understand, and I'm not saying that's you, but Lindsay, but when my dad what?
There's an old man and a young guy running around.
Torx Capassa, what?
You can clean the car with a Brillo pad. What kind of car? So that's for that's my authorly advice. If you write with your parents in mind and for explanations, you'll save a lot of what the heck are you talking about?
Much more clarity.
Yeah. So
great. Well, thank you both for joining us today on the podcast. It's been, for me, obviously enjoyable to be able to have such in-depth conversation about Back to the Future. Probably the most in-depth conversation I've ever been able to have with somebody else about Back to the Future. So that's been delightful. And I think Lindsay's gotten a taste of just how nerdy I can get with this stuff now.
We're so glad to be the vehicle for your nerdiness, and we enjoyed it as well. And yes, but we are open to a part 2, part 3, and we would actually break canon and we could do part 4 because we're not really
part 4 of the book or part 4 of Back to the Future conversations
of these conversations.
Okay,
our 50 Biff series.
Yeah, we're gonna do a podcast called 50 Biffs.
And there has to be 50 of them, so save up all of your really special material for like the last ones, just in case people run out of enthusiasm. Well, thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you both for your time today, and everybody check out their book. It's amazing.
All right, that wraps it up this time for the Pop Rewind Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagrams, Tumblr, Google+, YouTube, and of course at poprewind.com. Thanks for listening.
So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Bye.
PopRewind.com